Fine. Okay, Tia, what do you think in terms of how collaboration between commercial and finance teams and the client teams looks during the pitch and also the scoping process? What's your thoughts?
That, like in your question, there's also part of the answer, because there's a difference between if you're pitching and if not, right? Because if you're not in a pitch and it's kind of a renegotiation, and for me, even using the word negotiation probably just sets the wrong tone, right? Because it's almost like co-building something. And if you can see it from that perspective, then there are key people from the agency team, key people from the client team, including procurement, that get together and ask those questions. And they, to John's point on asking those questions to go deeper to the, what you call it interest, I call the aspiration, right? They say that you don't get the right answer until you've asked 5 why questions, right? Why, what, how? Like, so there's the layers to get to that are quite deep, but normally you tend to stop at the first or second layer. So having those opportunities, which normally if you have a client, you will have. And so creating many touch moments where it feels like you're co-creating something together, a new model. In pitches, you have less of that time, but it's almost the question becomes when you're preparing for that pitch with the procurement, with your own internal people on board, how can you recreate a shorter version of that so that you can ask those questions, those why questions? Because if we go back to that value, you can't define what value is just sitting around your table at agency, because the value will be different by client, and not just by the brand, but each person that is a client side. So having an understanding of that and then translating it internally for people and everyone aligning around that, then creates more of a North Star that everyone can go behind where at agency level to try and solve that conflict. And I think the anchoring, so what our move, our walk away point, that is very important, because very often you have that, but then because of what's happened in agencies in the past, there's always some way to unblock it, right? And it's like, oh yeah, we can get, there in a different way or whatever. And I think that then almost in a way breaks the trust, because is that our walk away point because of a valid reason? And why are we using that different ways to get in there? And I think that clarity and trust should never be broken in a way, so that really what is the walk away point, rather than a fake one and then a little buffer to get that you can get to in other. Are
clients expecting that there's always a fake one first now?
I think partly yes, because of what has happened in the past, and having those conversations more openly, because agencies don't want to say, look, we're not getting those rebates anymore. We don't, we don't have other ways of getting the money that we could go to before. Very often you don't say that, you don't verbalize it. It's kind of there in the air. So clients do push it, because there is always a little bit that assumption that you can go a little further because you will find a way somehow. And sometimes you can't, right? And that's when things become really inefficient on a specific client. And then also make the conversations with clients less honest, rather than let's try and build something where we can all be successful, and potentially also co-invest in, which is a different way for an agency to participate in something that is not just, I'm getting staff to run a service here.
Mm-hmm. Tracey, you were a client side for quite a few years, weren't you? What does it look like from the other side?
Oh, that's a great question. I haven't had one of those for a long time. The client is often, I think, kind of quite removed from what happens inside the agency. And I mean, my personal opinion is that, the client teams who go off to a pitch spend an enormous amount of time on the pitch, probably I'd say 80 to 90% on the kind of the idea and the creative. And I think what it invariably has is the scoping and pricing is always left to the end. John, you've probably got, and Tia, you've probably got anecdotes of this as well. It's normally, 2:00 in the morning and somebody goes, oh my God, we've got the idea. It's fantastic. We put it all together and we're ready to go in the morning. Oh my God, what are we going to charge for this? So from my perspective, coming from kind of a client side and then going over building an agency and then working with producing a platform, anecdotally, the perception is it all comes together seamlessly. But actually what happens is, the creatives come up with the ideas, the client teams vet those. A lot of work is actually spent on the pitch. Very little time is spent on the commercials and certainly the pricing. And it happens very late in the game. And then there's a big panic. What do you think the others are going to charge? Who else is in the pitch? What are they going to do? And actually, sometimes that should be brought forward. I'd like to say that we're better than that, but that's genuinely my perception of what happens, that the pricing or the kind of the commercials certainly come very late to the party, and they should have equal weighting, and they definitely don't.